Hi there, good evening and welcome to today's Let's Talk Skincare with me, Dr. Trevor Killeen. First, my apologies for last week and a big thank you to everybody who expressed well wishes. They're very much appreciated, so thank you very much for that. If you've missed the first two episodes of Let's Talk Skincare, you can catch up either here on the Facebook page or on the YouTube channel by searching for The Makeup Medic. If you haven't already done your skin inventory, then you can pop over to www.tkaesthetics.com, download the PDF and carry out your own skincare at home, skin analysis at home. To my mind, understanding your own skin is vital to choosing the right products and the right skin care treatments for your skincare. Okay, so on to today's topic. Now today is a topic that I think a lot of people will struggle with and a lot of people will find it difficult to address. So we're talking today about the difference between dry versus dehydrated skin. So there are two fairly commonly talked about problems with skin and frequently they're mixed up. So dryness was traditionally known as a skin type, so a particular type of skin, whereas dehydration is a skin condition that primarily evolves because of lack of water in the skin. Our skin types may change as we get older, and so it's important that we change our skincare regime and our skincare products to facilitate that as we get that little bit older and as our skin changes. I should also say, just before I go any further, if you've got any comments or questions, then do pop them into the comments below, and I will answer your questions as we get to the end of today's episode. So what is dry skin? So dry skin occurs where there's a lack of oils in the skin. Now, as I said, traditionally this is known as a skin type. So in other words, an inherent feature of your skin or of the individual skin. Now that may change, as I said, as well over time. So your skin as we get older may become drier and therefore may change and may not be the same as it was when we were younger. But we can do things to our skin or do things to our body that can cause dryness, particularly by stripping the natural oils in the skin. This is often due to inappropriate use of skincare products, so that we're using products that are too harsh for our skin, or in fact for the ladies using the incorrect makeup that may not be suited to our particular skin type. Dry skin can also be the result of some medications, and in particular medications that are used to treat acne can cause skin dryness. And then that can cause problems later on in life when our skin is particularly dry after using those medications. So what are the signs of dry skin? And this is really, really important when you're doing your assessment at home and you are considering your skincare products that you're going to need. So one of the key signs of skin dryness is that the skin appears flaky or scaling or is peeling. And that can be one of the key things that you'll notice in your dry skin. Other things that you'll notice is a feeling of tightness when you come out of the shower, and that sometimes can be due to the fact that you're using skin products to cleanse that are particularly harsh and pulling the oils from your skin. The skin can feel and look quite rough, so there's a change in texture. So in normal skin, our skin should feel nice and smooth, and if we look at it under a microscope, then the skin cells should lie nicely on top of one another, and there shouldn't be any breaks or flakiness in the skin. When we look at dry skin under a microscope, we see that the skin is very disrupted, that it's very, very rough, and essentially that it's missing that moisturization, so those oils that help to protect the skin. You may see fine lines appearing on the skin, or even in some cases you may see cracks that can be quite deep at times, and that can actually cause some significant damage all the way down to capillaries and actually cause bleeding at times. Redness or other signs of skin irritation. So this in particular happens when the skin is dry and we don't have the correct barrier function of the skin and we get irritants entering into the skin. So whether they be environmental irritants or whether they are things that we're adding to the skin, then that can cause redness and cause other signs of inflammation and problems. With the dryness, we can also get itchiness, and itchiness, particularly on the skin of our body, is quite evident. So, for example, at the elbows or skin creases or things like that, we can often get itchiness occurring where there's dry skin. We often find that dry skin is worse in certain environments as well. So we find that dry skin is worse in cold environments, where the air is dry, where there's air conditioning, or there's heating, or anything like that, where different environments can change and irritate the skin. So what are the causes of dry skin? So as I said, this can be an inherent feature of your skin. And there is very little that we can do about changing that particular element, but what we can do is use products that can help to minimize the effect of the lack of oil production in our skin. And as I previously mentioned, that can change over time. But probably one of the most important things that causes skin dryness are the skincare products that we use. And that can be anything from soaps to the makeup to shampoo to detergents. Lots and lots of different things, depending on whether you're talking about the skin on your face or your hands, can cause problems with dry skin. So essentially, anything that strips the skin of its natural oils can lead to the development of dry skin and therefore can cause problems. So as I mentioned already, things like incorrect makeup or foundation can cause dryness of the skin. So if you're using a powder foundation on top of dry skin that is already pulling the natural oils out of the skin, then that can cause significant problems when you remove that makeup and you're left with very, very oil poor skin. Type of job that you do, so if you're using chemicals in your job, so nursing, hairdressing, things like that, that your hands or things like that are coming into contact with chemicals that can strip the skin of its natural oils, that can also cause problems with dry skin. The weather can exacerbate dry skin. So with a lack of oils, when we're in low humidity environments, that can cause water to be lost significantly more from the skin. And this can cause the dehydration, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. And again, this can make the feeling of the dryness worse. Environmental, as I already mentioned, so we're talking about your heating and your air conditioning, and they can all pull moisture and water out of the skin. You can have certain medical conditions, so if you've got skincare problems like eczema, psoriasis or other autoimmune problems, then they can cause problems. And as I mentioned already, some medications can actually cause dryness or lack of oils in the skin, and particularly those that are used in earlier life for acne and to reduce oil production in acne, so your Roaccutane and things like that, can cause problems later on in life as our skin changes. So what are the consequences of having dry skin? So one of the key things is the loss of the protective function of the skin. And this allows for an easier entry of bacteria and microbes into the skin, and also more common that irritants can affect the skin much more easily. So things that you would normally not irritate the skin may well irritate the skin when the protective barrier is in fact damaged. Your skin can become more sensitized, so it can react to things more easily. So even changes in temperatures from going from hot to cold, your skin can become quite irritated, itchy and dry. And this is a sign that your skin's protective function is not doing what it's supposed to do. Ultraviolet light can penetrate more easily, and this again can cause further irritation and more importantly cause further damage deep down in the skin. Dehydration occurs more easily as well, as I've already mentioned. So if we haven't got that layer of natural oils protecting the skin, then the water that we have in our skin gets lost more easily, and particularly where we're in low humidity environments. So if you're air conditioning at work, heating at home, etc. One of the key things as well from an aesthetic point of view is that it can accelerate the signs of aging. So you can find the development of fine lines, and static lines become much, much easier if our skin is dry and lacks the oils to keep our skin moisturized. Okay, so before we move on to products and stuff, let's talk a little bit about dehydration. So dehydration is the loss of water from the skin and the lack of water found in the skin. This can be for a couple of different reasons. One, most importantly, is internal factors. And the key internal factors that you're not consuming enough water during the day, or that you're also consuming too many caffeinated drinks. So caffeine is a natural diuretic, and therefore we lose water when we drink caffeine. If we drink too much caffeine, then we're losing too much water, and that can starve the skin of natural hydration. External factors, as we've already discussed, so things like air conditioning, the weather, heating, things like that, low humidity environments that are pulling water out of the skin. And as I said, if the skin is damaged, then we're going to lose an excessive amount of water compared to if the skin was in its normal state. And so really, when we're looking at skincare products, we should be looking at things that are going to help to normalize the skin and help to restore that protective barrier and help to prevent dehydration occurring. So what are the signs of dehydrated skin? With dehydrated skin, if you think about any dried fruit, then that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. So it'll look dull, it can feel tight as well, it can look rough and crepey, so in other words it has that kind of lacking in water thing. So if you think about a skin of a grape, when it's fully plumped out with well hydrated, and you think about a raisin, that literally is what our skin can look like if it's not well enough hydrated. As I said before, with a lack of water, it can cause other problems with the protective function of the skin and therefore can become more sensitive or sensitized. We can find very fine lines on the skin surface, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to test for that in a few moments. With the result of lack of water and a lack of oil, so dry and dehydrated skin, we can see accelerated signs of aging, sagging of the skin, and the more readily development of deep wrinkles or static lines. So I mentioned about how to test to see if our skin is dehydrated. So one of the really simple ways that you can do this is the pinch test. And I mentioned this when we were talking about the skin inventory earlier on, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about that now. So essentially the pinch test is where we take some skin between our forefinger and our thumb, and we gently pinch it. Now if our skin is well hydrated, then we shouldn't see the development of any fine lines on the skin surface. If our skin is dehydrated, what you will find is that you will find the development of very, very fine dehydration lines on the skin surface. And you can test that in different areas. So one of the areas that becomes dehydrated most quickly is under the eye area. That's simply because the skin here is very, very thin, and so therefore it is more prone to becoming dehydrated more easily. And this can lead to signs like crepiness under the eyes, the appearance of darker circles, and the appearance of fine wrinkles, as I said. So really all you need to do is to pinch the skin in between your forefinger and your thumb, and have a look in a mirror and see if small, very, very fine lines develop there. And that is usually a sign that the skin is dehydrated. And there are some things that you can do that can address that pretty much immediately. So for example, things like hyaluronic acid serum. Used correctly, that can almost address those things immediately. Now some people will say that that's a surface solution, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on, because actually if we protect the surface, then we protect the deeper layers of the skin as well. Okay, so last week we talked about what constitutes a good skincare routine, and if you recall I said, for me, you need to have two basic steps and you need to do those twice a day. So one is cleansing and one is moisturizing. So the selection of your cleanser is quite important in terms of two things in my mind. One is that it's the right one for your skin type or that your skin condition, and two, that it fits in with your lifestyle. So the example I gave the last time was, if you've got very little time in the morning, you don't want to add an additional step into your routine, then using a face wash in the shower is probably going to be the cleanser that's most suitable for you. However, a bit like moisturizers, not all cleansers are equal. And so what you want to do is you want to select a face wash that is going to have some moisturizing oils in it as well. So you're not going to be looking at a face wash that is designed for either oily or acneic skin. So for example, if I have a quick look at the Juliette Armand skincare range, so this is the Micellar Cleansing Foam. Now this one is designed for dry and sensitive skins. In this one, you have micelles, which are small microspheres of oil, and so it helps not only to remove makeup quite easily, but also to moisturize the skin while it's doing its cleansing function. You then have other moisturizers or cleansers, you can see that are different consistencies depending on the moisturizer that you're talking about. So we have a cleansing wash here, and then this one is a hydrating cleansing milk. So the milk has more oils, so it's emulsified to have some more oils in it. And the cleanser wash will have less oils in it, although it will still have some moisturizing properties in there. So again, depending on what your skin type is, then you will want to choose and select a cleanser that is most suitable for you. Personally, I would recommend avoiding soaps unless they are specifically designed and pH balanced for the skin, particularly if you're talking about the face. If you're talking about body, then you want to use washes and cleansers that have additional oils in them that help to support and promote the protective function of the skin and to help promote the health and well-being of the skin. We can even go to the further lengths of things. So I said that milk is a lotion. You can also use creams as cleansers, and sometimes when our skin is particularly damaged, it is actually worthwhile using a cream as a cleanser in place of a cleanser that particularly strips the skin of oils. And they work just as well. However, what I would say that is if your skin is dry at the moment and you're embarking on trying to address the dryness, then be aware that over time your skin may well improve, and then you may need to revisit the type of products that you're using. Okay, so moisturizers, as I've mentioned, all are not equal, and they come in different forms from medicated ointments or ointments right the way through to creams, lotions and gels. And what's the difference between all those, you might ask? Well, the difference tends to be a little bit like makeup. We'll discuss that maybe another day, but they have different proportions of oils, water and humectants in them. So humectants are chemicals or compositions that hold moisture in the skin and help to promote skin health and help to keep that moisture and hydration in the skin. So let's talk about ointments. So ointments are at one end of the scale, and these are very thick creams. They're very, very thick moisturizers, and they have an extremely high oil content. Some of those will contain petroleum jelly, and one of the things in petroleum jelly when we're talking about extremely dry skin is that that is providing a protective barrier. It's not something that I would recommend for everyday use, but if somebody has particularly dry, very dry and very sensitized skin, then sometimes these ointments can be the first stepping stone to protecting the skin and allowing it to regenerate itself to such a point that you can move away from those to use some of the more normal moisturizers. So as I said, ointments have a very, very high proportion of oils in them. They have very little water, and they are often, as I said, very, very thick and provide a specific function of a protective barrier for the skin to help let the skin repair and rejuvenate itself. Creams would be the next step up. Now creams, there's a huge range of different creams, and some of the creams you will find that are quite thick, and they are specifically designed for dry skins. So if your skin is very, very dry, you've got some of those signs and symptoms that we discussed earlier on, is very, very dry, then you want to be looking for a moisturizer that is quite thick and high in oils. You don't want to be using some of the lotions or the gels that are at the other end of the scale, whereby they have got very little oil in them and more hydrating. Because what you'll find if you're using those on very dry skin is that you're not going to achieve the moisturization level that you need, and the skin is not going to have a chance to repair itself. So creams, as I said, they're very, very different, and they come in very, very different sort of consistencies. But if you've got very dry skin, what you're looking for is a cream that is high in oils and generally a little bit thicker. Moving then down to your lotions and your gels. So gels pretty much have very little to no oil in them and are very, very suited to oily skins. So where the skin is naturally producing enough oil, but what you want to do is you want to make sure that the skin is well hydrated. I should say that most creams will have a balance of both hydrating elements and moisturizing elements. So they will have oils and they will have water and things that will hold water into your skin. So for example, hyaluronic acid. So they will have a different proportion depending on the moisturizer. If you're talking about gels, however, they have very little oils in them and will be more designed to hydrate oily skins. And that really is important. So your skin is naturally producing enough oils because it's an oily skin. And what you don't want to do is to add more oils to that. So you want to be looking for moisturizers that are low in oils and are higher in hydrating elements. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about oily skins and the type of products that we should be using for oily skins and the type of products that can be used to combat that. Lotions then, as I said, is somewhere in between creams and gels, and they have less oil than they would do in the creams. So, quick recap. So, dry skin. If your skin is dry and or dehydrated, you want to be looking at moisturizers and cleansers that are going to help to add oils to the skin, not strip them away. So using cleansers that strip the skin of oils are not going to be appropriate, and using moisturizers that are low in oil content are not going to be appropriate either. Once we discuss the moisturizers and things like that, so let's move on now to serums. So I think you'll probably have, if you've watched a couple of my videos, you'll know that I'm a firm believer that everybody should have in their skincare regime a hyaluronic acid of some form. So whether that's contained within your moisturizer or whether that comes as a separate serum, so where you've got a serum that you add in, then you should have a hyaluronic acid in your routine. Why? Well, actually, the environments that we live in most of the days these days are either heated or air conditioned. So if you're at work, a lot of places will have air conditioning. When you're at home, particularly in wintertime, you'll have the heating on. It'll be drier environments so that you're pulling moisture out of the skin. So what you want to do is to make sure that the outer layers of the skin are well hydrated, and this prevents moisture or water, being pulled from the deeper layers of the skin. And if you're preventing water being pulled from the deeper layers of the skin, then you're preventing those signs and that I discussed earlier in terms of aging, damage, and various other things that are happening. So the hyaluronic acid, though, and your moisturizers should actually be put onto, I believe, wet skin. Now, some people will say damp skin. I think wet skin is a good way to go, particularly if you're putting on a hyaluronic acid serum as a separate step. This means hyaluronic acid is designed to hold, or as a natural component of your skin, it holds about 1,000 times its own weight in water. And so if you're putting it onto dry skin, you're not really helping the cause. So you're not locking in that water to hydrate the skin. So what you want to do is make sure that the skin is wet, and then that you add the hyaluronic acid to it and let it dry in, or let it sort of do what it's supposed to do, which is basically to lock in that water into the skin. And that will help to protect the deeper layers. The same goes for your moisturizer. So your moisturizer, if it contains hyaluronic acid, and anyway it should be put onto wet skin, A, you will probably use a little bit less product, and B, it means that whatever hydration is in the skin, it's locking it in there, it's keeping that in the skin surface. For very dry skins, then, you want to be looking at serums that contain oils. So you want to be looking at serums that contain nourishing oils, so for example vitamin E, vitamin B complex, jojoba, coconut, things like that are nourishing for the skin. And they can be used in conjunction with your moisturizer to add extra support to the outer surface of the skin and to help reform that natural barrier of the skin, which will help to reduce the loss of water, reduce the skin sensitivity, and help to smooth and make sure that that skin is in a much better condition and therefore have a much better appearance. Okay, my final two words are about an SPF. So no matter what your skin type is, you should be using an SPF every day. Winter, spring, summer, autumn, whatever, you should be using an SPF every day. And whether that's part of your moisturizer or whether that's part of another part of your routine doesn't really make that much difference. I tend to use a separate SPF. I prefer that because then I can use the same cream at night time, etc. But it's entirely up to yourselves, as long as you have an SPF. An SPF helps to protect against UV damage, and that essentially will help to prevent the breakdown of collagen and elastin in the skin, which can accelerate the signs of aging and help to prevent pigmentation of the skin as well. So an SPF is an absolute must every single day. For the ladies or gents who wear makeup, then please choose your makeup carefully. So if you've got dry skin, then don't be using a powder makeup, okay? Because what the powder is going to do is it's going to pull some of the oils, natural oils, from the skin, and it is in fact going to add to the problem of having dry skin. Now that might be okay while the makeup is on, but when you go to take off that makeup, it will strip away those oils as well. And so that is not really a suitable foundation for you to use. If you've particularly dry skin, then choosing makeup foundations that are higher in oils, so creams or pan stick or things like that are higher proportion in oils, will help to prevent the dryness of the skin and will help to protect the skin on top of your moisturizer as well. So you can use your makeup foundation, the type of foundation that you use, to help improve your skin texture and the dryness in your skin as well. So when you're considering it, have a look at your entire routine and look at where you might look at changing things or trying a different foundation that will help to prevent dryness in the skin as well. Okay, so a quick recap. So dryness occurs because of lack of oils in the skin and can give a very rough and dry appearance to the skin that can also be quite flaky at the extremes and peeling. Dehydration is a lack of water in the skin, and that can be combated both internally and externally. So internally, making sure that you hydrate well, that you limit your caffeinated products or alcohol as well. Limit those intake because they cause diuresis, and so loss of water by peeing it out. Reduce those, and then hydrate, and externally by making sure that you try and hydrate the skin surface to prevent water loss from the deeper layers of the skin, and using things like hyaluronic acid or moisturizers that have hydrating properties can help as well. So thank you very much for listening to all of that. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, then please pop them into the comments below. I'll have a quick look now and see if anybody has popped in any questions. Let's have a little look. Okay, so I don't believe that there have been any questions posted today. However, if you do have questions, then please feel free to pop them in the comments and I will get back to you. If you haven't popped across to tkaesthetics.com to do your skin inventory, then please do download the PDF, carry out your own skin assessment at home, and that will give you some idea as to the areas that you want to address in your skincare routine or in the treatments that you might select once you've come out of lockdown. So join me again next week when we will be taking a look at different types of masks, the different ingredients in masks, and how we can select masks again to help us address our skincare concerns and problems. So I look forward to talking to you next week. If you have any comments or suggestions, then please do drop us a line either in the comments below or on the contact form at www.tkaesthetics.com.